what's up? This is Devils in Detail, and you're in the right place for all things ASU athletics.
From football to soccer, we have a wide range of topics on today's show. Let's dive right in.
Well, Carson, to get things started, the Herm train has been more of a roller coaster so far this season, hasn't it?
It really has, Ethan, and this team's been inconsistent on both sides of the ball, especially lately. And so this team hasn't really found their groove, and I think the most disappointing thing is the offense. A lot of people expected the Sun Devils to be one of the best offenses in the Pac-12. That really hasn't happened this year, especially in the passing game. Manny Wilkins hasn't been the deep ball threat people thought he would be, and he hasn't really found N'Keal Harry as much as he'd probably like to. And going off of that, what are some of the inconsistencies you've seen this season, Ethan?
Well, yeah, Carson, you touched on it a little bit, but it's definitely been the offense, and they're incapable of finding balance between their star players. You talked about N'Keal Harry, and you look at a guy like Frank Darby, and even Eno Benjamin. ASU is having trouble distributing the ball evenly to these playmakers. And then when you look on the defensive side of the ball, they're just not getting the turnovers they need at the right times to put the offense in a better position. But yes, just definitely inconsistent. And ASU has been in every game, losing all four of their losses coming by one score. So Carson, as we look ahead to the rest of the season, does this team have a chance to win the Pac-12 South?
Mathematically, yes. But let's be real. This team is not going to win the Pac-12 South if they don't improve really quick. They have a lot of tough games ahead. Oregon, USC, Utah, all of those teams have looked really good lately.
Oh, yeah.
Even some of the bottom teams like UCLA. UCLA's looked really good in their last 3 weeks. Joshua Kelly's established him as one of the best running backs in the Pac-12. So it's looking really unlikely as the weeks go by that they have any chance for the South. But I don't think that was really expected in Herm Edwards' first year as head coach.
Yeah, that's true.
Going off of that, which players have done well this year and really proven themselves on the field?
Well, to start on the defensive side of the ball, true freshman Merlin Robertson has been an absolute he's been a stud. He's stepped up for this team, getting that opportunity, and he's played over 350 snaps so far through 7 games. And when you look on the offense, Frank Darby has been that deep threat guy when the Sun Devils choose to go deep, Frank Darby's second in the FBS in yards per catch downfield. And also, Eno Benjamin, he's the running back of the future. Despite ASU losing Brock Sturgis and Traylon Smith in a matter of 2 weeks, Eno Benjamin's going to be the guy for the rest of this season and next year. So Carson, as the team gets ready to go to SoCal to take on the USC Trojans, what do you expect in this matchup, Carson?
For the Sun Devils to have a chance, they really have to step up offensively. USC's defense is the most athletic in the Pac-12. Year in and year out, they always get 5 stars and 4 stars. And their player, Porter Gustin, one of the elite linebackers in college football, one of the most physical players in the Pac-12. So that will be an interesting dynamic for the game. And they just have to force takeaways on the defensive side, make mistakes of JT Daniels, who's a little under the weather. He got shaken up against Utah, so he won't be necessarily 100%, so they have to take advantage of that to have a chance.
Definitely. Well, and just in case you missed it, here are some sights and sounds from ASU football against Stanford last Thursday.
In the words of ASU head coach Herm Edwards, tonight's game was that of drop balls, a game of penalties, and a game of turnovers. For the Arizona State Sun Devils, they fall to the Stanford Cardinal by a score of 20-13 after sputtering on the offensive end all the way until the game's final 2.5 minutes, where Manny Wilkins in the offense got within 25 yards of the end zone, but ultimately failed to convert.
You take those back and you get a field goal there, or you get a touchdown, one of those 2 times. It's a different ball game, but I'm sick and tired of coming in here always saying it's one play away. We gotta fix it.
I just feel like we right there. We just right there. We just gotta get over this hump. I think we need to fix the mental errors, We gotta play harder and we just gotta finish more plays.
Despite the Sun Devils' first home loss of the season, there were positives that came out of tonight's matchup. Head coach Herm Edwards loved the resilience that was on display by this young team.
They play hard. They do. And it's never over for these kids. They just keep coming. They keep fighting no matter how bad it looks. And it looked bad for a while. And then all of a sudden, you make a couple plays and the energy goes up, and here you go. We're back in the ball game. It wasn't the opponent. It was us. It was us either making mental errors or just having lapses.
Tonight, the Sun Devils tried a little bit of everything. We saw N'Keal Harry throw an interception. Now sitting with a record of 3-4 in the season, the Sun Devils head into LA next week to take on SC in what could be considered a must-win game. For the Sun Devils, it's time to buckle down, get serious, and finish the season strong. Thanks for watching. I'm Richard Girafo, and this has been Devils in Detail postgame.
Well, Sun Devil hockey is fresh off its first road trip of the year. ASU swept Alabama Huntsville to improve to 4-2-0 on the early season. Reporter Nick Frias joins the show now to give us an inside look into the team's recent success. Welcome on, sir.
Thanks for having me, Ethan.
Of course, Nick. Well, on Monday, in the latest USCHO rankings that were released, the Sun Devils received their first ever poll vote. So now, Nick, what does this mean for the program?
Well, I think the first thing that everyone needs to know that it means for this program is that the voters are finally taking the Sun Devils seriously because someone gave them a vote, and the program has taken this next step where they're winning the games they should be winning and competing in the games that they should be competing in. And I mean, their only 2 losses came in competitive games against the #1 team in the nation who traveled to Tempe to play the Sun Devils. And so it's nice to see that not only are people in Tempe realizing that this team has taken the next step, but also the voters around the nation are recognizing this. And not only that, but if the Sun Devils can pull off another sweep this weekend when they host Nebraska-Omaha, and also potentially split the following weekend when they host a top 10 Penn State team, there's a chance that by the first weekend in December when those polls come out, we could see the Sun Devils in the top 20 for the first time in program history, which would check another box of the 4 or 5 remaining on Coach Powers' checklist for the program as an NCAA program.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Coach Powers was asked about the first poll vote in program history. It didn't bat much of an eye. Quote, "It's cool, I guess." So now, Nick, the Sun Devils are still working on staying out of the penalty box. So is discipline an issue for ASU on the ice, and will it affect this team down the road?
Well, I mean, you look at the first series, they only had 8 penalties and only allowed 7 shots on goal, and everyone thought it was okay, but it's also worth noting that that's an Alaska Fairbanks team that's struggled in the past, and this season they've yet to even get a win. Their closest thing was a tie against the University of Denver this previous weekend. They're 0-5-1 on the season, so those 8 penalties and 7 shots on goal are nothing out of the ordinary. But in the other 2 series, in both series, the Sun Devils had 11 penalties. So that's 22 times in the box in that whole series. And one of their 2 losses to Ohio State, the 3-2 loss on the Friday night, 2 of Ohio State's 3 goals, which counts as the game-winning goal and the game-tying goal when you look in the box score, came on the power play. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you can't make excuses, and hindsight's 20/20, but if the Sun Devils stay out of the box, maybe they take one of those 2 games against the Buckeyes. I don't know how much of an effect it's going to have going down the stretch, but it definitely is something that they need to kind of look at in practice and talk about as a team and hopefully fix and at least minimize the amount of time they spend in the penalty box.
Yep. Well, Nick, it's early, but who has stood out to you on this ASU team so far through 6 games this season?
I think there's 2 guys that have really stuck out when you look past the leadership group, and that's, you've got Joey DeCord, goaltender, junior, 7th round pick with the Ottawa Senators a few years ago. Hopefully, I mean, Brinson Pasichnuk, the captain, and a bunch of other players think he's got what it takes to take it at the next level, but we'll see in a few years when he's finally out of here. But he leads the nation in shots faced with 158. He's also tied for the NCAA lead in shutouts with 2 shutouts against Alaska Fairbanks. And it's also worth noting that when you look at goaltenders this season who've had more than 1 game started and more than 1 game played, his .956 save percentage is the 5th best in the nation, and his 1.18 goals allowed average is top 3. And I believe he's one of the few goaltenders this season to have started all 6 games. And then the other one is Johnny Walker. He's got a point in 5 of the first 6 games so far this season. He scored a goal in each of the first 3 games. He's got 4 goals, 4 assists for his 8 points so far this season. And more importantly, he's got this next level physicality that you see out on the ice, and it fires up the team when they need to get fired up. And it kind of could be a problem when you look at the penalties like we talked about earlier, but it's also one of those things that fires up the team, and who knows, maybe there's a close game later this season where Johnny's fire is the fuel that the team needs to pull off an upset against a top 10 team.
Well, you mentioned Joey Decord. With that Ottawa Senators prospect, he has the opportunity to sign after this season, his junior season. But after that, if he doesn't sign and stays with ASU, he will become an NHL free agent. But Nick, it's great to have you on for the first time. You can check out all of his work and the rest of our Sun Devil hockey coverage at devilsindetail.com.
ASU Soccer's Nicole Douglas is our Devils in Detail Athlete of the Week. The freshman sensation was a crucial factor in the Sun Devils' 2 victories over the Washington schools this past weekend. Douglas netted 2 goals Sunday against Washington, and before that, she contributed with an assist against Washington State in the Sun Devils' win last Thursday. After the weekend, Douglas now has 8 goals and 2 assists on the year. I am now joined with soccer reporter Jerry Walker. And Jerry, the Sun Devils won both of their matches against the Washington schools. What went right for the Sun Devils in those matches?
Goal scoring. That was a big thing this weekend. They put up 5 goals in 2 matches, and they had 4 different goal scorers in that period, with Nicole Douglas being the only one to score twice, with both goals in the win over Washington. Defensively, goalkeeper Nikki Panos made 8 saves on 10 shots, only allowing the 2 goals in.
After the wins, ASU now sits at 8-5-1 overall, heading into a 4-game stretch to end the season. Jerry, how do you see the end of the season concluding for the Sun Devils?
As of right now, they're 37th in the country in the RPI rankings. Top 64 teams make the playoffs. They have 3 winnable matches left, away at Oregon State, and then back here against Arizona. If they can win all 3, they're definitely in for sure. But if they do lose up in 2 of those, they'll have a tough time beating the number 1 team in the country, Stanford, in a game that was delayed last weekend.
And there you have it. Thanks for joining me as always, Jerry. You can find all of his work at devilsindetail.com.
ASU basketball season is quickly approaching, but the men's team lost a big piece of the future for now. Phoenix Hillcrest Prep junior Kyrie Walker has reopened his recruitment after committing to Arizona State just 2 summers ago. Walker is a 5-star prospect and is the number 14 overall player for the class of 2020. ASU is not expected to continue to recruit him, but Walker has not officially ruled out joining Bobby Hurley's squad. His father and coach, Kari Walker, told AZ Central that Arizona is now high on his son's list of potential schools, along with Kentucky, Kansas, California, Nevada, and Texas. Now, keeping it on the court, let's send it over to Nick Zeller-Singh for an update on ASU volleyball.
Volleyball started the year on a great note, as they went 12-4 before hitting a skid. However, recently the Sun Devils have dropped 5 of their last 6 games to bring their record to 13-9. The team is still young, but still has seen much improvement this year. Throughout most of the games, the offense has been very useful and hard to defend, as middle blockers Carmen Unzwe and Megan Beatty are opening up the court with their attacking chances for the outside hitters. But recently, the young team has been struggling as inconsistency and mental errors are holding them back. In their 4-game losing streak, ASU has given up 122 errors, which is an average of 30.5 errors per game. Also, the last 2 games, the offense did not show up, as everyone is struggling except for Elise Ford, who has 43 of ASU's 90 points in the last 2 games. Ivana Yeremich and Claire Kavinsky have been in a slump for the last few games, causing Ford to do a lot of the work, which causes the defense to have 2 to 3 girls trying to block her shots at all times. However, head coach Sanja Tomasevic has put in a new highly powered offensive lineup that seems pretty effective when everyone is playing their game.
Former ASU football player Vontaze Burfict made some negative headlines for his $112,000 worth of fines just over a week ago. But Cleveland Browns cornerback Demarius Randall made up for it with an outstanding defensive performance in the NFL last Sunday. Randall finished with a game-high 12 tackles in their overtime loss against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was a first-round draft pick in 2015 and spent first 3 seasons with the Green Bay Packers after being traded to the Browns in the offseason. Randall has been exceptional through 7 games as he is on pace to set a career high in tackles in a single season.
That's it from us. It's always our pleasure to bring you the latest in Sun Devil athletics.
Gotta love it. Again, he's Carson Field. I'm Ethan Schmidt. Thanks for watching Devils in Detail.